Welcome everybody to another one of my running sessions featuring my trains. In this particular video, a slight change from the usual procedure. I'm just going to focus for a short amount of time on the Hornby B12, the B12-3 to be completely accurate. Now the model that I'm demonstrating here is dates from the mid-1970s, and it was the Hornby model of the B12 that they did in matte black in a wartime livery with northeastern on the tender, as you can quite clearly see. Still quite easy to get this model in quite good condition, and in fact what I did when I got mine about 6 months ago, I've just recently decided to modify it a little bit, and I matched it up to the later B12 chassis that Hornby introduced in the early 2000s, and I was quite pleased by the way it looked, so I decided to do a little bit more detailing on it. So I'm just going to do a very quick overview on that before the running session. So let's take a closer look at this locomotive, and I'd be interested in your views and on the way you think this locomotive now looks compared to its predecessor back in the 1970s. So first of all, the chassis, as I said, it's a much later one that they produced for the B12 back in the early 2000s. And what you've got here are much finer driving wheels and a much finer looking coupling rod. And I think it does actually enhance the appearance and makes it look quite a bit more realistic. So I'm just going to go around to the front, so bear with me as I turn the camcorder around, and I hope you can then see what I've managed to do on that. Let's move in a bit closer. As is usually the case with most of my locomotives, I repaint the buffer beam because I'm never satisfied with the red that's as they come out on the models, but then that's just me. But additionally, what I've actually done here is to put the disc codes, which were a feature of the Great Eastern Railway, and of course this was carried on in LNER days and BR Eastern Region days. They still use the discs as well as the lamps. So I've decided to put the lamps on, the discs I should say, on this locomotive, just for, you know, variety. I've also added on, where it is, metal buffers and a coupling hook with a screw coupling on it, and of course the vacuum pipe. Now, those of you that are very keen on the LNER locomotives will point out that the vacuum pipe, there should be two on the front because of the existence of the Westinghouse pump brake there, which is sort of moulded into the model. And I did look at had the idea of actually doing that, but I thought it looked too cluttered for the model. It looked a bit cluttered on the real thing, and I thought, well, if I do it on the model it'll only exaggerate that, so I've just left it with the one vacuum pipe on the front. I also managed to put the number on the front of the buffer beam, which is the correct way in which that should be represented. So that's 7476. I can just about make it out on the front of the buffer beam there. So I'm just going to move the camcorder along the top so you look down on it a little bit more. So if I move, and you can see that when it comes to the tender, I've filled that with real coal, and placed the fire irons on top. I've also gone to the trouble of doing the crew on this one. Probably see that better when it's going round. Well, one of the things I've come across quite a lot is looking at these models when the crew has been applied, just how many times they're not painted. They're just put in, or the fire irons are just stuck on the back of the tender without them being painted. When in actuality they would get rusty and they would get scorched and combined with rust and dirt, so they need to be painted. And of course the other thing about them is that they were never arrow straight, they were always bent and buckled, and that's what I've tried to do here, so I hope it just adds to a bit of additional realism and the overall look of this locomotive. So there's the B12-3, circa Hornby 1975-76, married to the early 2000 chassis that they did for the B12, and some additional details on the front. So without any further ado, we'll have the trains running. I'll just mention very quickly the other train I've got going round on this is the B17, circa 1980s, LNER apple green with carmine and cream LNER coaches on it. So we'll now get this underway.